Hey everyone, my name's Keith Corey. Today I'm doing my fitness education presentation on a 50-year-old retired police officer. About 2 years ago, he had knee replacement surgery, so it really fit into our assessment and our program design that we're trying to accomplish for somebody in our population. So what we did is we sat down with him and we looked at his health and movement assessment. As far as health is concerned, we just took the PARQ self-assessment test on him. He had no real issues as far as health was concerned, so there didn't feel like there was a need for any type of medical exam outside of knee replacement. So he went through that, scored relatively well. He had a score of 2 in relation to cardiovascular disease risk factors, and so that placed him in moderate risk, but it still allows him to perform low to moderate intensity activity levels. As far as movement is concerned, that was an issue that we really looked at because of his knee replacement. We used the functional movement screening test, and then we also included a 9-test screening battery, which was invented by Flodstrom, Hanye, Bott, and Fromm. And what that 9-test screening battery is it's the FMS, and then they just included 2 more exercises, which was a single leg squat and then a seated rotational movement. So the reason I did that is because with the functional movement screening, my only concern was that a lot of the movements are done in the sagittal plane, and as we all know with our day-to-day activity, we work in all 3 planes of motion, so I wanted to see what his mobility looked like through different planes of motions as well. In saying that, he scored a 10, so we know through the FMS that anything below a 14 is a risk for injury, and quite frankly, his biggest issues were in lower body movement, just because of his range of motion and mobility being so limited right now. So we need to really focus on some multi-joint movements as we get into his periodization that will help him with that. As far as periodization, what we did when we sat down with him was looked at what his goals were. His goals were cardiovascular endurance and muscular endurance, obviously, and then weight reduction was something that was important to him. And then as we went through the FMS and 9-test battery, then he also realized the importance of range of motion and mobility, that he was really limited, and it was something that he felt like he needed to improve just to feel better on what he was going to try to accomplish. So Williams and Wood did a study in 2006, and what they basically talked about was cardiovascular endurance as opposed to resistance training for the elderly, and how would resistance training improve overall health benefits. And what they found was resistance training helped with weight loss even more than just endurance training on its own. So that was something that he saw, and so it was really important that we included some type of resistance training for him as well as cardiovascular. As far as the training program is concerned, what we did is that I made a decision that we would put together a linear periodization program, and the reason for that is more than anything was for his confidence. I just felt like he was struggling with his confidence right now, and I wanted him to be able to see gains. As far as the undulating program is concerned, it's more of higher intensity and volumes, and then opposed to or then including in lower intensity on different days, and so there wasn't one that was really better than the other. More than anything, it was just a confidence builder for him so that he could see us increasing our intensity over the weeks as opposed to going up and down all the time. And maybe that might help him with his technique and his improvements as well. Ramalling and Yi did a study in 2013, and they compared undulating periodization to linear. And what they did is they took a 12-week program together. They had people train twice a week, and they did the bench press and the squat, and then they at the end wanted to compare the two and see if there was a difference. And what they found is that there was no difference really improving muscular strength and muscular endurance. They both had a pretty good effect on what they were trying to accomplish. So in my opinion, there really wasn't one that was better than the other. It was more of what would help benefit the client more. And then over a period of time, we just want to keep increasing the intensity. And then as far as testing protocols, what we would do is through the periodization is at the end of each mesocycle, we would test him, find out what his 1 rep max are, so that we can get a baseline of where we want to go into the next mesocycle, as far as improve or increasing weight and volume and loads. Now, as far as the periodization program is concerned, our focus was more on muscular endurance and muscular endurance more than it was strength. And the reason for that is that because of his need for weight loss, I just thought that if we put together an endurance program, it may help him more than just putting together a strength program. You can see through this that we start out relatively low intensity, and the reason for that is that we're just trying to get his mechanics and his technique down to begin with, and then we'll increase it as we move along. We're only doing 5 lifts just because he's so basic right now. We didn't need to get into a bunch of different exercises. I wanted him to master the exercise that we're doing each time that we go in. And as you see, we're not doing the same lift more than once a week. So we change up the lifts each day that we go in. And that way he's working in different planes of motion, and we're also working multi-joints as we go along. So the last thing that I want to cover with this is that if you look at it, it's a circuit program that we're doing. We're doing both upper body and lower body lifts as we go along. The reason that I decided on that is because I believe that in order for him to improve his muscular endurance and overall activity level, that we wanted to do a circuit training program that would keep his cardiovascular level, his heart rate up during that time. So that's why we did it. As far as the reasoning behind it, Romero Arenas et al. In 2013, they did a study on the effects of high-intensity circuit training as opposed to just heavy strength training. They compared the two. And so they had subjects do twice a week for 12 weeks, circuit training and heavy strength training. And so what they found after that period of time, pretty obvious, the people that did strength training, their strength gained a lot faster than the circuit training. But the circuit training had a faster reduction in weight loss, fat mass, and had more lean muscle mass at the end of that 12-week period. So because of his original goals, that's why we decided to go with the circuit training program as well. As the periodization, as the mesocycle finishes up, you can see in the first cycle we're going to increase from the first week to the second week. And then from the third week, we're going to go from 65 to 70%. And then in the fourth week, we go into our detraining program. We're going to drop everything down to about 50%, because at the end of that period, what we want to do is we're going to retest him then, find out what his new 1 rep max is. And we want him to not fatigue on us, because as we start our second mesocycle, then we'll increase the intensity as far as the workload is concerned as well. So that's the decision behind what we did. As far as the lifts are concerned, you will see that through the first mesocycle and the second mesocycle, we stayed with the same type of lifts. And again, my goal and my opinion with him is that we wanted him to master that. It's very, very critical that we were able to get him into the range of motion and the mobility that we need him to, because as we go along and we incorporate other exercise activities, we need to make sure that that mobility and range of motion comes back for him. So now, as far as our exercise techniques, as you can see, and you'll be able to watch this video, he really struggled with his lower extremity and even his upper extremity exercise techniques. One of the areas that he really struggled with was the deadlift. And because it's an everyday movement that we use, I thought that it was really important that we worked with him on this area. So you can watch this video, and it gives you an idea of what we were working on and what we tried to accomplish with him. The 4 areas that I really tried to work and stress with him were his foot placement. He had a tendency to really have an anterior knee placement. And his shins were getting away from being vertical. He struggled with getting the bar over the midline of his foot. He wanted to really drop his hips into complete flexion before he worked with his knees. And I think part of that, before he wanted to get his knees into extension, is that he didn't feel comfortable putting the stress on his knees just because of his knee replacement. And then he really had a hard time with maintaining a neutral position with his spine as well. So when you look at this video, you'll see what his problems were and how important it is for us as far as getting his technique down more than his intensity level right now. And then the other thing, the second one that we worked on was bench press, and that was just an issue for him more than anything, is just being comfortable. We talked about the 5 points of contact, his eye placement. When he was doing his exercises, he was really high on his chest as far as setting the bar down. So I wanted him to understand the importance of getting flexion in the elbows and getting full range of motion, and part of that would be through having a certain amount of abduction in his shoulders as we went down, and trying to find that midline of his chest so that we can make sure that he gets his the bar in the proper location. And then we wanted to make sure that he got back into extension, and we were really focused on internal rotation and external rotations of the shoulder as he went through flexion and extension as well. And then just maintaining that posture that we needed to. So you'll see some of the coaching points that we had when I went through those different exercises with him, and you'll be able to see the deficiencies that he had and why it's so important for us to work on the technique. Again, I stress that, but working on the technique more than the intensity level and the load of the weight as we go along. So now, as far as application is concerned, I'm kind of in a unique situation. So I actually train athletes for a living. I own my own sports performance training facility. I've been doing it for roughly about 17 years now. So I'm blessed to have the opportunity to be in the field that I love to do. Something that I've learned through all of this is that performance training, it's an evolution process. We're always evolving, and so having the opportunity to go through this and learning different techniques of exercise and how to implement them is really important with athletes and even population that we're working for, as far as strength and speed and power and range of motion. One of the things that I really harp on right now is that everybody's into the sexy opportunities to train people with the new and best thing coming out. And what this class has really taught me is that we really have to get down to the fundamentals of what we're doing. And with those range of motion and the application of the proper technique, we'll be able to improve those athletes even more on everything that we're trying to do. One of the things that I saw was there was Thompson et al. Did a study in 2015, and what they basically talked about was how deadlift will increase the torque that's needed for a vertical jump. Well, with my athletes, that's something that's really important. So through this class, I've really started to implement the deadlift into some of our training programs so that we can create more ground force and really focus on that torque. Had I not taken this class, that application process probably would not have taken place. So, which leads me into the faith integration side of it. 3 Bible verses that I hold true to my heart and that I think is something that's very important in the field we're in. One is, "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge in the flesh, rather serve one another humbly in love." I think that we're given an opportunity, and we're in a unique position in what we do, that we need to serve others to really help them, because a lot of people out there are struggling with their health and struggling with their movements and what they can do in life, and they just need somebody to teach them the proper way of doing things, because they're just scared and they don't really understand what way they should go. So service to me is a huge part of what we do. We've been blessed with an opportunity. I think it's very important that we are able to give that out to others. Second one, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. I think that's pretty obvious that another Bible verse that I didn't put in there is that our bodies are a temple, and God has given us an opportunity to be healthy and live lives that we can pass on our experience and our expertise to other people. And so I think it's very important that we glorify God by giving everybody that opportunity that we can. And then finally, is I can do all things through him who gives me strength. The more we rely on God, the more strength we're going to have, not think about ourselves. So I hope everybody enjoyed this. I appreciate the opportunity, and I wish the best of luck to all of you. Thank you.